So a couple of quick little things about statistical significance and hypothesis tests. So what we're going to do is, say we run a test for a single mean. We have a sample. Like I said, we're going to have a null hypothesis, some alternative hypothesis. We're going to get a sample statistic from some sample, find a p-value, and then make some statements. Okay, so here we've got this one. Again, we can generate these samples doing the randomization distribution, and we've got a mean of 98.26, our sample mean. And what we can do for our left-tailed test, if we're testing the hypothesis that the actual mean temperature is less than 98.6, we're going to look at the cutoff of 98.26 and find that the p-value is 0.00056. So if we're thinking of the statistical significance or a significance level of 0.05, that p-value is less than 0.05, we will reject the null hypothesis. It seems as if an assumption of 98.6 isn't a very good one, that maybe the actual mean temperature is lower than 98.6 based on this sample and this low p-value. If I'm doing it for a proportion, what I can do is, it sets this thing up here. If you have your own data, you can edit data. And what you'll do is, so say I've got some sample data that I'm working with, and there's 28 out of 257 is what the proportion is in my data. So it sets it up this way. There's the sample proportion right there. I've got some null hypothesis, and I can find, a p-value down here, 0.109. That's assuming a mean of, assuming a true proportion of 50%, getting a sample of 257 that has a sample proportion of a 10.9%. That's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly rare. Okay. Now again, if we change this proportion, so let's assume the null is 0.25 or 25%, and we get some sample of 10.9%. Again, we can find what that value looks like. 0.109, that's our sample. Again, that's pretty low. Okay, p-value is 0.000. That would suggest that the assumption here is also not true. Okay, so that's one little switch you have to make when you're using a proportion. But you can always find, for any particular value, you can find, so here's one particular sample had a proportion of 0.268. So what if I have 0.268? Okay.